All right, April 20th and the beginning of book 9. And I wish I had a Milton shirt to wear. I should rectify that in these quarantine times. Obviously, June is here and still enthusiastically breaking all the rules. And I think I'm going to just jump right in. I don't know, quarantine day. Let's see what my calendar says. Quarantine day. Hopeful me, I didn't even write it this far. Quarantine day 45. Teaching day 25. And yeah, I don't really have anything to add except we persevere. Book 9, National Poetry Month, day 20. The argument. Satan, having compassed the earth with meditated guile, returns as a mist by night into paradise, enters into the serpent sleeping. Adam and Eve in the morning go forth to their labors, which Eve proposes to divide in several places, each laboring apart. Adam consents not, alleging the danger, lest the enemy of whom they were forewarned should attempt her found alone. Eve, loath to be thought not circumspect or firm enough, urges her going apart, the rather desirous to make trial of her strength. Adam yields. Adam at last yields. The serpent finds her alone. His subtle approach, first gazing, then speaking, with much flattery extolling Eve above all other creatures. Eve, wondering to hear the serpent speak, asks how he attained to human speech and such understanding not till now. The serpent answers that by tasting of a certain tree in the garden, he attained both to speech and reason, till then void of both. Eve requires him to bring her to that tree and finds it to be the tree of knowledge forbidden. The serpent, now grown bolder, with many wiles and arguments, induces her at length to eat. She, pleased with the taste, deliberates a while, whether to impart thereof to Adam or not. At last brings him of the fruit, relates what persuaded her to eat thereof. Adam at first amazed, but perceiving her lost, resolves through vehemence of love to perish with her, and extenuating the trespass, eats also of the fruit. The effects thereof in them both. They seek to cover their nakedness, then fall to variance and accusation of one another. So, sort of the moment we've all been waiting for up until now. And yeah, all right. We're going to read, let's see, through line 377. So line 1 through line 377. No more of talk where God or angel guest with man, as with his friend, familiar used to sit indulgent, and with him partake rural repast, permitting him the while venial discourse unblamed. I now must change these notes to tragic. Foul distrust and breach disloyal on the part of man, revolt and disobedience. On the part of heaven, now alienated, distance and distaste, anger and just rebuke and judgment given, that brought into this world a world of woe, sin and her shadow death, and misery, death's harbinger. Sad task, yet argument not less but more heroic than the wrath of stern Achilles on his foe pursued, thrice fugitive about Troy wall, or rage of Turnus for Lavinia disespoused, or Neptune's ire or Juno's, that so long perplexed the Greek and Cytherea's son. If answerable style I can obtain of my celestial patroness, who deigns her nightly visitation unimplored, and dictates to me slumbering, or inspires easy my unpremeditated verse. Since first this subject for heroic song pleased me long choosing, and beginning late, not sedulous by nature to indite wars, hitherto the only argument heroic deemed, chief mastery to dissect with long and tedious havoc fabled knights in battles feigned, the better fortitude of patience and heroic martyrdom unsung, or to describe races and games, or tilting furniture, emblazoned shields, empresses quaint, caparisons and steeds, bases and tinsel trappings, gorgeous knights at joust and tournament, then marshaled feast served up in a hall with sewers and senescals, the skill of artifice or office mean, not that which justly gives heroic name to person or to poem. Me of these, nor skilled nor studious, higher argument remains, sufficient of itself to raise that name, unless an age too late, or cold climate, or years damp my intended wing depressed, and much they may, if all be mine, not hers, to who brings it nightly to my ear. The sun was sunk, and after him the star of Hesperus, whose office is to bring twilight upon the earth, short arbiter betwixt day and night, and now from end to end night's hemisphere had veiled the horizon round. When Satan, who late fled before the threats of Gabriel out of Eden, now improved in meditated fraud and malice, bent on man's destruction, maugre of what might hap of heavier on himself, fearless returned. By night he fled, and at midnight returned from compassing the earth, cautious of day, since Uriel, regent of the sun, decried his entrance, and forewarned the cherubim that kept their watch. Thence full of anguish, driven the space of 7 continued nights, he rode with darkness. Thrice the equinoctial line he circled, 4 times crossed the car of night from pole to pole, traversing each collar. On the 8th returned, and on the coast averse from entrance on cherubic watch, by stealth found unsuspected way. There was a place, now not, though sin, not time, first wrought the change, where Tigris at the foot of paradise into a gulf shot underground, till part rose up a fountain by the tree of life. In with the river sunk, and with it rose Satan, involved in rising mist, then sought where to lie hid. Sea he had searched, and land, from Eden over Pontus, and the pool Maeotis, up beyond the river Ob, downward as far Antarctic, and in length west from Orontes to the ocean barred at Darien, thence to the land where flows Ganges and Indus. Thus the orb he roamed with narrow search, and with inspection deep considered every creature, which of all most opportune might serve his wiles, and found the serpent, subtlest beast of all the field. Him after long debate, irresolute of thoughts resolved, his final sentence chose fit vessel, fittest imp of fraud, in whom to enter, and his dark suggestions hide from sharpest sight. For in the wily snake, whatever slights none would suspicious mark, as from his wit and native subtlety proceeding, which in other beasts observed doubt might beget of diabolic power active, within beyond the sense of brute. Thus he resolved, but first from inward grief, his bursting passion into plaints thus poured. O earth, how like to heaven, if not preferred more justly, seat worthier of gods, as built with second thoughts, reforming what was old. For what God after better or worse would build? For what God after better, worse would build? Terrestrial heaven, danced round by other heavens that shine, yet bear their bright officious lamps, light above light, for thee alone, as seems in thee concentrating all their precious beams of sacred influence. As God in heaven is center, yet extends to all, so thou, centering, receivest from all those orbs. In thee, not in themselves, all their known virtue appears productive in herb, plant, and nobler birth of creatures animate with gradual life of growth, sense, reason, all summed up in man. With what delight could I have walked thee round, if I could joy in aught, sweet interchange of hill and valley, rivers, woods, and plains, now land, now sea, and shores with forest crowned, rocks, dens, and caves. But I in none of these find place or refuge, and the more I see pleasures about me, so much more I feel torment within me, as from the hateful siege of contraries. All good to me becomes bane, and in heaven much worse would be my state. But neither here seek I, no, nor in heaven to dwell, unless by mastering heaven's supreme, nor hope to be myself less miserable by what I seek, but others to make such as I, though thereby worse to me redound. For only in destroying I find ease to my relentless thoughts, and him destroyed, or one to what may work his utter loss, for whom all this was made, all this will soon follow, as to him linked in weal or woe. In woe then, that destruction wide may range. To me shall be glory, sole among the infernal powers, in one day to have marred what he Almighty styled 6 nights and days continued making, and who knows how long before had been contriving, though perhaps not longer than since I in one night freed from servitude and glorious well nigh half the angelic name, and thinner left the throng of his adorers. He to be avenged, and to repair his numberless thus impaired, whether such virtue spent of old now failed more angels to create, if they at least are his created, or to spite us more, determined to advance into our room a creature formed of earth, and him endow exalted from so base original, with heavenly spoils, our spoils. What he decreed, he effected. Man he made, and for him built magnificent this world, and earth his seats. Him Lord pronounced, and, O indignity, subjected to his service angel wings, and flaming ministers to watch and tend their earthly charge. Of these the vigilance I dread, and to elude, thus wrapped in mist of midnight vapor, glide obscure, and pry in every bush and brake, where hap may find the serpent sleeping, in whose mazy folds to hide me, and the dark intent I bring. O foul descent, that I who erst contended with gods to sit the highest, am now constrained into a beast, and mixed with bestial slime, this essence to incarnate and imbrute, that to the height of deity aspired. But what will not ambition and revenge descend to? Who aspires must down as low as high he soared, obnoxious first or last to basest things. Revenge, at first though sweet, bitter ere long, back on itself recoils. Let it, I reck not, so it light well aimed, since higher I fall short on him who next provokes my envy. This new favorite of heaven, this man of clay, son of despite, who must the more to spite his maker raised from dust. Spite then with spite is best repaid. So saying, through each thicket dank or dry, like a black mist low creeping, he held on his midnight search, where soonest he might find the serpent. Him fast sleeping, soon he found in labyrinth of many round, self-rolled, his head the midst, well stored with subtle wiles. Not yet in horrid shade or dismal din, nor nocent yet, but on the grassy herb, fearless, unfeared, he slept. In at his mouth the devil entered, and his brutal sense in heart or head, possessing, soon inspired with act intelligential. But his sleep disturbed not, waiting close the approach of morn. Now when as sacred light began to dawn in Eden on the humid flowers that breathed their morning essence, when all things that breathe from the earth's great altar send up silent praise to the Creator, and his nostrils filled with grateful smell, forth came the human pair and joined their vocal worship to the choir of creatures wanting voice. That done, partake the season, prime for sweetest scents and airs, then commune how that day they best may ply their growing work. For much their work outgrew the hand's dispatch of 2 gardening so wide. And Eve first to her husband thus began. Adam, well may we labor still to dress this garden, still to tend plant, herb, and flower, our pleasant task enjoined. But till more hands aid us, the work under labor grows luxurious by restraint. What we by day lop overgrown or prune, or prop, or bind, one night or 2 with wanton growth derides, tending to wild. Thou therefore now advise, or hear what to my mind first thoughts present. Let us divide our labors, thou where choice leads thee, or where most needs, whether to wind the woodbine round this arbor, or direct the clasping ivy where to climb, while I in yonder spring of roses, intermixed with myrtle, find what to redress till noon. For while so near each other thus all day our task we choose, what wonder if so near looks intervene in smiles, or object new, casual discourse draw on, which intermits our day's work brought to little, though begun early, and the hour of supper comes unearned. To whom mild answer Adam thus returned, Soul Eve, associate soul, to me beyond compare above all living creatures dear, well hast thou motioned, well thy thoughts employed, how we might best fulfill the work which here God hath assigned us, nor of me shalt pass unpraised. For nothing lovelier can be found in woman than to study household good, and good works in her husband to promote. Yet not so strictly hath our Lord imposed labor, as to debar us when we need refreshment, whether food or talk between, food of the mind, or the sweet intercourse of looks and smiles, or smiles from reason flow, to brute denied, and are of love the food. Love not the lowest end of human life. For not to irksome toil, but to delight he made us, and delight to reason joined. These paths and bowers doubt not, but our joint hands will keep from wilderness with ease, as wide as we need walk, till younger hands ere long assist us. But if much converse perhaps these satiate, to short absence I could yield. For solitude sometimes is best society, and short retirement urges sweet return. But other doubt possesses me, lest harm befall thee severed from me. For thou knowest what hath been warned us, what malicious foe, envying our happiness, and of his own despairing, seeks to work us woe and shame by sly assaults, and somewhere nigh at hand watches, no doubt, with greedy hope, to find his wish and best advantage, us asunder, hopeless to circumvent us joined, where each to other speedy aid might lend at need. Whether his first design be to withdraw our fealty from God, or to disturb conjugal love, then what perhaps no bliss enjoyed by us excites his envy more. Or this, or worse, leave not the faithful side that gave thee being, still shades thee and protects. The wife, where danger or dishonor lurks, safest and seemliest by her husband stays, who guards her, or with her the worst endures. To whom the virgin majesty of Eve, as one who loves and some unkindness meets, with sweet austere composure thus replied: Offspring of heaven and earth, and all earth's Lord, that such an enemy we have, who seeks our ruin, both by thee informed I learned, and from the parting angel overheard, as in a shady nook I stood behind, just when returned at shut of evening flowers. But that thou shouldst my firmness therefore doubt, to God or thee, because we have a foe may tempt it, I expected not to hear. His violence thou fearest not, being such as we, not capable of death or pain, can either not receive, nor can repel. His fraud is then thy fear, which plain infers thy equal fear that my firm faith and love can by his fraud be shaken or seduced. Thoughts which how found they harbor in thy breast, Adam, misthought of her, to thee so dear? To whom with healing words Adam replied: Daughter of God and man, immortal Eve, for such thou art, from sin and blame entire. Not diffident of thee do I dissuade thy absence from my sight, but to avoid the attempt itself, intended by our foe. For he who tempts, though in vain, at least asperses the tempted with dishonor foul, suppose not incorruptible of faith, not proof against temptation. Thou thyself with scorn and anger wouldst resent the offered wrong, though ineffectual found. Misdeem not then, if such affront I labor to avert from thee alone, which on us both at once the enemy, though bold, will hardly dare, or daring, first on me the assault shall light. For thou his malice and false guile contemn. Subtle he needs must be, who could seduce angels, nor think superfluous others' aid. I from influence of thy looks receive access in every virtue, in thy sight more wise, more watchful, stronger, if need were of outward strength. While shame, thou looking on, shame to be overcome or overreached would utmost vigor raise, and raised unite. Why shouldst not thou like sense within thee feel when I am present, and thy trial choose with me, best witness of thy virtue tried? So spake domestic Adam in his care and matrimonial love. But Eve, who thought less attributed to her faith sincere, thus her reply with accent sweet renewed: If this be our condition, thus to dwell in narrow circuit, straitened by a foe, subtle or violent, we not endued single with like defense, wherever met, how are we happy, still in fear of harm? But harm precedes not sin. Only our foe tempting affronts us with his foul esteem of our integrity. His foul esteem sticks no dishonor on our front, but turns foul on himself. Then wherefore shunned or feared by us? who rather double honor gain from his surmise proved false, finding peace within, favor from heaven, our witness from the events. And what is faith, love, virtue, unassayed alone, without exterior help sustained? Let us not then suspect our happy state left so imperfect by the Maker wise, as not secure to single or combined. Frail is our happiness, if this be so, and Eden were no Eden thus exposed. To whom thus Adam fervently replied, O woman, best are all things as the will of God ordained them. His creating hand nothing imperfect or deficient left of all that he created, much less man, or aught that might his happy state secure from outward force. Within himself the danger lies, yet lies within his power. Against his will he can receive no harm. But God left free the will, for what obeys reason is free, and reason he made right, but bid her well beware, and still erect, lest by some fair appearing good surprised she dictate false, and misinform the will to do what God expressly hath forbid. Not then mistrust, but tender love enjoins that I should mind thee oft, and mind thou me. Firm we subsist, yet possible to swerve, since reason not impossibly may meet some specious object by the foe suborned, and fall into deception unaware, not keeping strictest watch as she was warned. Seek not temptation then, which to avoid were better, and most likely, if from me thou sever not, trial will come unsought. Wouldst thou approve thy constancy? Approve first thy obedience. The other who can know, not seeing the attempted, who attest. But if thou think trial unsought may find us both securer than thus warned thou seemest, go. For thy stay, not free, absents thee more. Go in thy native innocence. Rely on what thou hast of virtue. Summon all, for God towards thee hath done his part. Do thine. So spake the patriarch of mankind, but Eve persisted, yet submiss, though last replied. And I don't know why I chose to stop there when I was dividing. Seems kind of a silly place. I'll probably back up and read that bit again tomorrow. All right. I hear so many echoes of like book 3, where God is sort of justifying the way that he decided to set mankind up with the freedom to fall and the sufficient power of reason and free will to stand if they had chosen, while knowing, according to his version of this model at least, while knowing that they would choose poorly, they wouldn't remain steadfast and loyal. Right. So he sort of set a test up for them. And interestingly, Eve sort of sets a test up for God, while Adam continues to be God's, like a reiterator of God's logic. Anyway, all right, more tomorrow.